joins me on the line because we've had an awful lot of discussion on this programme in relation to Coillte and what they're doing to forestry in this country, and not Coillte, sorry, like Coillte. What's going on with forestry in this country and the sale of some portfolios to the likes of Gresham House or otherwise. So Coillte did a deal with the British Investment Fund, Gresham House, and it's expected to result in the planting of 3,500 hectares of new forests over the next 5 years. But people were then concerned about ownership and all of that, and was it a sellout? And why were not members of the IFA and farmers in the country of Ireland, why were they not given the opportunity to make this investment and plant these trees and otherwise? But Senator Ronan Mullen has put down a notice of motion to the Seanad. He joins you on the line today. And it's good news, this motion. And good morning to you, Senator. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Keith. Now, the main credit for this needs to go to my Seanad colleague, Victor Boyan. We're members of the Seanad Independent Group, and we availed of private members' time yesterday to put down this motion, which I think you agree is timely in the light of all the talk that has been going on, particularly about Coillte and the Gresham House deal. Apologies now for the Seanad bell ringing in the background, but I'm staying in my seat here with you. So the motion was accepted by the government. Essentially, what the motion was saying, look at, we have massive targets that we're supposed to be reaching. I think it was supposed to be the case that we were to be planting 22 million trees a year from 2020 to 2040. Now, I would calculate that if you look at the aspiration that 70% of that would be coniferous and 30%, or between 15 and 30% of would be evergreen, with the need for respect for biodiversity and so on. That you'd be talking about 8,000 hectares a year, give or take. So we're nowhere near meeting the targets that we've set for ourselves in the country. Coillte has identified a lack of equity, a lack of money as being the biggest issue that they face. So it's understandable that they would be looking out for investors. But I think what we've seen is that when it comes to land, when it comes perhaps to British investors in particular being involved in land, and all of the questions around, well, who will get the benefits of the carbon credits that will go with that afforestation, it clearly hit a nerve. So we hear a lot of talk about people putting on the green jersey. You could say that we're suggesting that we should put on the evergreen jersey here, which is to say, propose that the government look at setting up a state-run national forestry fund to allow Irish people, urban and rural, be investors in the future of our afforestation projects. Oh,
come back now, though. I mean, if the thing that 22 million trees are sowed on an annual basis from 2020 to 2044, there's nearly half a billion trees will be sowed in that period of time. I don't know where they're all going to go, but anyway, come back to the...
Well, I agree, and I mean, I think a lot of people would be looking at some of the targets that were set in recent years, whether it's to do with the amount of trees we're going to be planting, or indeed the amount of electric cars we're supposed to have on the road by 2030, and wondering, how the hell is any of this realistic, And I can't answer that in one easy sentence. No. All I can say is we've about just under 12% of Ireland under forestry. The target is to get to about 18% by 2050. And we all know why that's important in terms of taking carbon out of the environment. So I think everybody's in favour of more afforestation, but what we're seeing is problems with money, problems with getting it done, problems around where the money would be coming, if it's coming in from outside. And if you talk to people, there's about 10,000 people working in the forestry industry. Huge frustration at the moment with problems getting felling licenses, opening roads. I'm told that there's a diktat from on high saying don't be applying for anything. There's nothing going to be decided until July. So you wonder about people's jobs and all that context. So there's a lot of issues coming together here.
But just go back now, though, to the notice of motion. So is the notice of motion that you have down here, what is it going to do to the British Investment Fund, Gresham House, when it comes to taxation, Nothing. When it comes to invoking the agreement that they have for the 3,500 hectares over the next 5 years? What does
nothing
that,
to be truthful,
nothing,
Keith.
Nothing.
Because what is a motion? A motion is an argument that is made in the Shannon. We put down this, we noted all the issues. We said that we're calling on the government to evaluate the benefits of establishing this state-run National Forestry Fund, looking at creating tax incentives for those who invest to try and achieve climate goals through ensuring biodiversity in the forestry that's planted, looking at ensuring, I suppose, that the carbon credits coming from such forestry would be to the benefit of Ireland and not for these institutional investors who might want to sell them off to the likes of Microsoft and so on. But in the end, what happened was that the government senators agreed with the motion, so there was no vote on it. It went through on the nod. But a motion from the Shannon is not an instruction to the government that the government must follow. And even if the government was going to follow this, our motion didn't actually say anything about the deal that has been done. We're not getting into the nitty-gritty of that, because if you have contracts that are in place, those contracts are going to stay in place.
So effectively, the investment in question, which is coming from the UK, and the deal has been done, that investment is between Coillte, the UK company, and there's nobody else involved in that.
That is my understanding, and again, I am not holding myself out as an expert
the profits
in this area.
From that then go back
but
to
I
the
think
UK.
when we are, sorry,
the profits, which will be maybe 40 years' time, that will have been ascertained from this project in, say, 40 years' time, that money goes back to this investment company in the UK.
Yeah, well, yes, and again, without being an expert, I would imagine it is about an ongoing return to them. I doubt if investors are going to wait 40 years for the profits, but it's also about the carbon. You know, when carbon's offsets are, let's say, if you put land under forestry, you're taking carbon out of the atmosphere. That is something which the Irish state needs in order to offset against our own failure to reduce carbon emissions. You know, we are buying carbon credits on the market. I think in 2019 or by 2019 we'd spent about 121 million purchasing carbon credits. So if in the context of such investment by outside investors, the benefit of the storage of carbon, or what they call the sequestration of carbon, if that's going to go to outside investors as opposed to the Irish people, that's not a good thing either. What I'm saying is, though, you know, being truthful about it, I would suspect that what is done in this matter. What we're hopefully doing, or among others, by putting down this motion, is putting a shot across the bows of the government and saying, listen, our future in forestry cannot be about outside investors. I'm not against private money, but we need to know what's the impact going to be on biodiversity, communities, farmers, smaller forestry businesses. How are they going to be affected by that? Isn't it time we talked about doing what has been done in over 50 other countries, which is to have a national forestry fund to allow Irish people, urban and rural, to have a stake in our forestry future, to see it as an investment, see it like the SSIAs of a number of years ago.
Okay.
To get Irish people taking an interest in, you know, keeping our own land as much as possible, investing in what we need to do in afforestation, and taking the benefits for ourselves as a nation. I think that is the preferable option, and it's time we explored that. As I said, 50 other countries have national forest funds. Shouldn't our government be thinking about it too? So the Shannon agreed this, and it has unanimously called on the government to evaluate the benefits of having a scheme like that, a fund like that, and calling on the government to publish a report on a model for the possibility of such a national forestry fund and they're supposed to produce this report by next September. So I think it's our job in the Shannon to keep the government's feet to the fire now and say, look, we passed this motion, your senators didn't disagree with it. Where's the report on whether this project has legs or not?
Caller to the programme said, Keith, remind Senator Mullen that the ship has sailed. Forget growing trees, as you would want to use your Holy Communion money to make money from forestry, and going for a walk, all waffle, and that's all waffle from politicians.
Yeah, well, you know, if you don't start exploring solutions, you're not going to come up with them. I mean, you're talking about 3,500 hectares over the next 5 years. As I've said to you, we'd want to be doing, 8,000 hectares a year anyway. So there's a lot of road to be travelled here yet. And if as a result of this debate and other debates about the wisdom of dealing with British and other foreign investors, we actually started up a project of our own with an incentivisation for Irish investors to develop future future forestry needs. Well, I think that would be a step in the right direction. I mean, it's fine and dandy to accuse politicians of waffling, and sometimes it's justified, but if you don't start by waffling, you certainly won't end up talking yourself into the ideas you need to solve your country's problems.
All right. Senator Ronan Mullen, thank you for joining us today on the programme.